Before it became a symbol of luxury on the autobahn, it was born in silence, metal molded by precision, in a factory where excellence was engineered, not imagined. The Mercedes-Benz S-Class W116, introduced in 1972, was a revolution in luxury, safety, and engineering. Built at the iconic Sindelfingen plant in Germany, its production process set the gold standard for craftsmanship and automotive innovation. It was in the late 1960s that Mercedes-Benz engineers started designing a sedan that would rewrite the rules of luxury and road safety. The W116 project was not a mere upgrade, but a quest to design the most sophisticated car that the company had ever produced. Under the stewardship of legendary Friedrich Geiger, the design focused on a new bold character with a lengthened, broadened, and more aerodynamic shape that took passenger protection and road presence very seriously. Clay modeling sessions, countless technical drawings, and advanced wind tunnel tests were conducted within the innovation labs of Sindelfingen. This car would debut crumple zones, a reinforced passenger cell, and laid the groundwork for the world's first anti-lock braking system. The blueprint included safety, performance, and elegance all intertwined. Sindelfingen's research teams worked closely with the design bureau, ensuring that every measurement wasn't just theoretical, but production-ready. What emerged was a vision of the future, one about to be forged into steel. Each Mercedes W116 started life as a flat sheet of steel, cold, unpretentious, and waiting to be. These coils of steel came in by train to the Sindelfingen factory, where they were straight away uncoiled and fed into one of Europe's most sophisticated press shops. Colossal hydraulic presses, some more than 100 tons in weight, stamped out body panels to millimeter accuracy. In seconds, they created intricate structures, doors, hoods, fenders, and roofs that would each find themselves a part of something iconic. From there, body panels were sent to the body shop, where experienced laborers and first-generation welding robots embarked on the time-consuming task of assembly. The W116 had a unibody design, where the body and frame were welded into one rigid unit for increased safety and handling. Floor pans were welded to side panels, the roof was married to the pillars, and inner frames were reinforced by supports at key impact areas. Despite the rising use of automation, much of the work still relied on the human touch. Craftsmen adjusted door gaps by eye, checked alignment with gauges, and hand-finished weld seams that couldn't be trusted to machines. Every seam was inspected, every joint verified. One unique feature of the W116's assembly line was the integration of quality control at every stage. As the shell advanced along the line, inspectors checked torsional rigidity, weld consistency, and frame balance. If even one point didn't meet Mercedes' standard, the car was pulled off the line and corrected. When the raw steel frame finished traversing the body shop, however, it was not the same. What began as dead sheet metal had developed into the silent, unassuming center of an automobile that was soon to deliver presidents, ambassadors, and daydreamers from coast to coast. At the heart of every Mercedes-Benz W116 was an engine built not just for movement, but for mastery. Whether it was the silky smooth M110 inline-6 of the 280s or the roaring M100 V8 of the 450 SEL 6.9, each power plant was a mechanical symphony assembled with clinical precision. The engine blocks themselves were cast at Mercedes' Untertürkheim facility and shipped to Sindelfingen, where they arrived as blank canvases of cast iron and aluminum alloy. At Sindelfingen's engine hall, trained technicians assembled the engines by hand, each bolt torqued to exact specifications using calibrated tools. Crankshafts were inserted, pistons dropped in, and camshafts carefully aligned to ensure valve timing was flawless. Every component was double-checked under bright inspection lamps. No part of the process was rushed. Engines underwent cold testing before they ever turned a wheel by simulating operation under fluid pressure to detect any anomalies in oil flow or compression. Mercedes even used magnetic particle inspection on certain components to detect microscopic fractures invisible to the naked eye. One hallmark of the W116 engine line was the focus on refinement. Every unit was tuned not just for power, but for quiet operation and longevity. Even the rubber engine mounts were engineered to suppress vibration to a whisper. By the time the engines left the hall, they weren't just powerful, they were poised. And soon, they would be joined with the soul of a vehicle built to glide across continents with elegance and effortless force. With its structural frame complete, the W116 body entered one of the most critical stages of its transformation: the paint shop. Here, raw steel met chemistry and color where function met form, and every surface was prepared not just to shine, but to endure decades. The process began with an immersion in the cataphoretic electrodeposition tank, known as the KTL bath. This electrically charged bath coated every inch of the body, inside and out, with a rust-resistant primer, ensuring even the hidden crevices were protected from corrosion. Afterward, the body was baked in a curing oven, locking in the primer with thermal precision. Next came the sanding bays, where workers meticulously smoothed the primed surface by hand. Each panel was caressed with fine grit abrasives, ensuring the surface was flawless before paint application. Sindelfingen was already pioneering robot-assisted paint application by the late 1970s, especially for base coats, but skilled painters still handled critical finishing touches and color matching. Multiple coats of paint were applied in succession: primer, base coat, color, and finally a clear lacquer that gave the W116 its signature gloss. Popular colors included astral silver, anthracite gray, and Milan brown, each carefully blended to exact pigment formulas. After the final bake, every car received a thorough inspection under high-intensity lights. Workers scanned for blemishes, inconsistencies, or orange peel texture. Imperfections were corrected with polishing pads and compound, restoring a mirror-like finish. By the end of this stage, the W116 wasn't just protected, but it gleamed with presence, wearing its color like a tailored suit. If the exterior of the W116 was built for prestige, its interior was crafted for an experience refined, comfortable, and deeply personal. At the Sindelfingen plant, this stage marked the moment when the car's character truly took shape. Before any trim or leather was applied, technicians lined the cabin with sound-deadening materials. Dense mats, foam padding, and bitumen sheets were tucked into the floor, wheel wells, and firewall. This wasn't just about silence, it was about acoustic purity. Engineers believed that true luxury was not only felt, but heard, or rather, not heard. Next, the wiring harnesses were installed. These were painstakingly routed and clipped into place, linking every electronic system, from dashboard gauges to rear window defrosters. Parallel teams worked to assemble the dashboard, a complex unit involving real wood veneer, chrome accents, and soft-touch plastics. Each piece was hand-fitted to eliminate rattles and gaps. Classic Becker Europa radios were fitted, along with precision analog instruments and climate controls. Then came the seats, a marvel in themselves. The W116 offered velour and genuine leather upholstery, each stitched by hand. Underneath the surface, Mercedes' innovative seat spring system delivered support that adapted to weight and movement. Front seats were bolted in first, followed by the rear bench and headrests. Door panels were next, complete with armrests, window switches, and chrome-trimmed handles. Final touches included sun visors, floor carpets, steering wheels, and center consoles. Even the glove compartment hinges were over-engineered for durability. By the time interior assembly was complete, the W116 didn't just feel assembled, but curated. From the stitching in the seats to the grain of the wood, everything reflected Mercedes' philosophy. The car must serve the driver, without compromise and without distraction. With the body painted and the interior in place, it was time to give the W116 its legs and heartbeat. At Sindelfingen, this phase was known as the marriage process, where the engine, transmission, suspension, and drivetrain were finally united with the body. The powertrain, pre-assembled earlier, was mounted onto a specialized subframe along with the front suspension system. At a dedicated station, the completed body shell was carefully lowered onto this subframe using hydraulic lifts. This moment was critical. Millimeter-perfect alignment ensured optimal ride, comfort, and safety. Once aligned, technicians bolted the engine mounts and drivetrain supports in place with torque-calibrated tools. At the rear, a semi-trailing arm independent suspension system was installed, a hallmark of Mercedes engineering that gave the car its renowned stability and ride comfort. Drive shafts were linked to the differential, and the brake system, featuring ventilated front discs and solid rears, was connected and bled for flawless hydraulic performance. Transmission linkages, exhaust systems, and fuel lines were then integrated. Even the fuel tank, a carefully designed unit located behind the rear axle for crash safety, was mounted and pressure tested. Tires were fitted onto alloy or steel wheels, inflated and balanced before being bolted onto the chassis. Wheel alignment was calibrated using laser-guided equipment, ensuring perfect geometry for high-speed stability. What rolled off the station now wasn't just a structure, but a machine, capable of whisper-quiet cruising at autobahn speeds, with the strength to glide, the control to stop, and the power to thrill. At this stage in the Sindelfingen plant, the car was nearly complete, but Mercedes-Benz didn't settle for almost. The final assembly hall was where details were obsessed over and perfection became non-negotiable. Exterior trim pieces were the first to be installed. Bumpers polished to a mirror finish were bolted on with rubber guards meticulously aligned. Chrome accents around the windows, door frames, and grills were fitted by hand, ensuring no misalignments or gaps. The legendary Mercedes three-pointed star was fixed proudly on the hood and was always perfectly centered. Weather seals were glued and pressed onto every door and window frame. Door alignment was checked repeatedly. Each one had to shut with the signature Mercedes thunk, a dull, satisfying sound that signaled solidity and precision. Windshields and rear glass were mounted with sealants and cured to resist pressure at high speeds. Next came the lighting system. Headlamps, turn indicators, fog lights, and taillights were installed and electronically tested. Wiper assemblies were bolted on and timed precisely to avoid stutter. Fluids such as coolant, oil, brake fluid, and windshield washer were filled and carefully monitored. Then came the final electronics check. Everything from interior dome lights to electric windows and instrument cluster lights had to function without a glitch. This was followed by cosmetic detailing, i.e., buffing, polishing, and wiping down every surface to showroom condition. Before moving to quality inspection, the vehicle was already gleaming, perfectly assembled and road ready. But for Mercedes, ready wasn't good enough. The real test was still to come. At Sindelfingen, quality control wasn't an afterthought but a philosophy. Every W116 that rolled off the line underwent an intense battery of inspections, simulations, and real-world driving tests. Mercedes-Benz believed that no car should ever leave the factory unless it was flawless, not just in appearance, but in performance and reliability. The process began with a multi-point inspection conducted under high-intensity lighting. Inspectors scanned the bodywork for any imperfections such as paint bubbles, dust particles, or even the slightest ripple in the chrome. Doors were opened and shut repeatedly, checked for alignment and sound. Electrical systems were tested one by one, and every switch, bulb, and gauge had to work seamlessly. Then came the rolling road test. The vehicle was placed on a dynamometer, where technicians simulated real-world driving conditions. They tested the transmission shifts, throttle response, braking, and emissions. This allowed them to spot issues without even leaving the factory. But Mercedes didn't stop at simulations. Each W116 was driven on a dedicated test track around the Sindelfingen plant. Drivers, trained to detect the subtlest of issues, evaluated the car's behavior during acceleration, cornering, and emergency braking. Any unusual sound, rattle, or vibration triggered immediate diagnostics. Special attention was paid to steering response and ride comfort. The W116's hydraulic systems were tested for leaks and consistency, and every car underwent a water test by being driven through a high-pressure spray chamber to ensure there were no leaks in the cabin. Only after passing all these stages did the car earn its final certification, a discreet stamp under the hood, signifying it had met Mercedes-Benz's unforgiving standards. It wasn't just a quality check, but a rite of passage. With testing complete and perfection certified, the Mercedes-Benz W116 was finally ready to leave the Sindelfingen plant. But its journey was far from over. Each car was cleaned, polished, and wrapped in protective film before heading to a vast distribution yard adjacent to the factory. From there, the vehicles were loaded onto trains and transporters bound for ports across Europe. Special models like the 450 SEL were often custom-ordered and air-shipped to VIP customers, diplomats, and heads of state. Others crossed oceans aboard cargo ships, landing in the US, Middle East, Australia, and beyond. Mercedes maintained an intricate logistics system to track every car's journey. Dealerships received models tailored to their markets down to the language on the dashboard and emissions calibration under the hood. Upon arrival, cars were detailed again and prepared for handover. When a customer first sat behind the wheel, they weren't just buying a car. They were receiving a piece of German engineering history. The Mercedes-Benz S-Class W116 wasn't just a car. It was a statement, a vehicle forged in the heart of the Sindelfingen plant, where technology, craftsmanship, and luxury came together in perfect harmony. It set new standards in automotive safety, performance, and design, becoming a symbol of status and refinement for decades. Today, the W116 remains a beloved classic, a testament to the enduring quality of Mercedes-Benz. As it rolls through history, one thing is clear: the W116 didn't just change how we drive, but it changed how we dream about driving.